Welcome to the Filmmaker to Filmmaker podcast, the podcast where I, a filmmaker, talk to other filmmakers about their career in the film industry and learn about their latest project. My name is B. Anthony, and thank you for listening. Welcome to Filmmaker to Filmmaker. I am your host, B. Anthony. Janice is not with me today because she is just an awesome person. She had to take care of some things, and I am trying to be more diligent and consistent with producing podcasts. So I elected to record, but have no fear. Janice will be back, and we are going to cut up and have fun and do all things filmmaker to filmmaker when she gets back. So love you, Janice. Looking forward to you sitting next to me, throwing my pills away. If you don't know what that reference is to, you have to check out the last episode that was produced. But I wanted to get on and talk to the audience and share what's on my heart. You know, being a filmmaker is not an easy thing, and the last 4 years have been very, very unique for filmmakers, especially coming through the pandemic. For a lot of us, we were even wondering if we'll ever be able to do this again. And I know for me personally, it was an interesting time, because when the pandemic began, I had just produced my first short film, my third short film, My Empty Space. And for those of you who don't know my story, prior to that, I created my company back in 2017, really earlier than that, because I had another company called Be Strong Productions, but that canceled, or that ended. and I was going to give up on filmmaking and just media altogether. And then I had that extra tug to try again. So I'll go into all that later. Probably when we're talking business and filmmaking. Yeah, maybe I'll do that for an episode. Anyway, started back up again with the B. Anthony Creative Group. Produced a short, B Light, and then I also did Till Victory Is Won, 2 projects. And then I produced My Empty Space. And that was my second time creating a narrative short film. Long story short, produced that and people responded to it. I won film awards. Like, people really liked the movie. And I, to this day, have won, I believe, 4 awards courtesy of film festivals, right? That was crazy to me as well. I won my first film festival with the Soul for Real International Film Festival. That was my first one. And then after that, I won an award for editing and cinematography with Nikki, who is my DP. Shout out to Nikki, for My Empty Space at the Cecil County Independent Film Festival. So that's just some of the awards that I've won. After that, I think I ran into the space of what do I do next? Because for the most part, I'm used to working alone and then bringing people along for the ride. To move the story along, 2021 up until really the beginning part of this year, I was doing a lot of searching, trying to figure out, A, what filmmaking is going to look like post-pandemic, and then B, if I could do it again. So there was a part of me that dealt with imposter syndrome. And a lot of that has to do with this mindset that I have to do it on my own, right? I probably, like a lot of filmmakers, I read Robert Rodriguez's Rebel Without a Crew. If you haven't read that book, it's an amazing book. My dad actually purchased that book for me, but I had heard about it. And, you know, it's the amazing story of how Robert Rodriguez got into filmmaking. After reading that, there's this idea that is birthed within me that says, okay, I can do this by myself. I have been doing this by myself. But what I also discovered was, in adopting that mindset, I really neglected the value in community, right? So what that did for me as a creative and as a filmmaker, I put a lot of weight on myself, right? I found myself just trying to say, I can do it. You know, I'm capable. And I am. I think self-confidence and, you know, being team self is an amazing thing. But I do believe that line of thinking gets you to a point where it becomes toxic, right? And it fosters the space of limiting the beautiful collaborations that could happen. So because I relied on self, I literally was stuck on myself and not really using the resources available to me. I found myself in this place of being stuck. A lot of that was fueled by imposter syndrome as well, because, oh my God, I just created something that got all these awards and this acclaim. And granted, it wasn't the Oscars or anything, right? But when people respond positively to your work, or let me make it personal. When I saw that people were responding positively to my work, I'm like, this isn't real. Like, is this really happening? And it was beginning this space of imposter syndrome, you know, and just me questioning myself, like, can I do it again? Can I do it again? And I'm sad, to admit that I stayed in that place for a long time thinking, can I do it again? Being in that place was really fueled by this whole idea that I had to do it all on my own. So I started trying to do things, but the ideas just stayed trapped within me. It wasn't until, last year, 2023, maybe 2022, where I met Janice. This was kind of the catalyst of things starting to change a little bit. And on a whim, we were talking, and I found out that she made films, and we go to the same church. And so when Janice says that, I'm like, where have you been all my life? So we're talking and just going back and forth. She's telling me what she's into, and, we do all the things. So immediately, I can't explain it, but there was this space with someone creatively where not only did I have the space to talk to someone about films, right? But I was able to kind of have like a partner or an accountability partner to bounce my work off of, So I took a risk, and I just let Janice start reading my stuff, writing-wise, because I had been writing and I had been doing things, and I just wasn't sure if I was doing this filmmaking thing right. So I went to a writer's group before I met Janice, and that was good, but the problem with that writer's group was not that they did anything wrong or anything bad, but I think for me personally, I liked the concept of the writer's group, but I didn't really feel connected to it, right? Which is very key, because when talking about collaboration and working with other people, you want to get with people that you genuinely feel safe with. I think that's just a life rule. That's relationship 101. You wouldn't just link up with anybody with intimate parts or something that you value, right? And just give it away. Not when you know what you have and when you value it properly. Admittedly, because of all the negative thoughts and imposter syndrome and all that stuff that I was dealing with, I was devaluing myself. I was devaluing what I brought to this art form. And in doing that, I stifled myself for the last 2.5 years with filmmaking. So did the writers group, that was okay. And then I did 2 writers groups, as a matter of fact. So one writers group I didn't really connect with, but it was good to have that space. The other writers group was good, but it was more of a collab situation where we would listen to each other's scripts. And I think the things that they were doing, I just wasn't connecting with. I don't blame those groups at all. I think it was me just coming into a season of really knowing what works for me and what's not working for me. And it took courage for me just to really understand what's not working for me, acknowledge it, and move on. With that being said, I took a pause from those groups because I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't just doing things for the sake of doing them, and I wasn't wasting time. But then even in doing that kind of prolonged me not doing anything at all. So here comes Janice. Janice reads some of my scripts and it's just like, wow, I like this. And she gave me feedback. So it wasn't just a yes type of deal where she just said she liked everything, but she was starting to get feedback. And so in that relationship, I started feeling the nudge to keep going and to keep writing. So over the past year, I have been starting and stopping, starting and stopping, starting and stopping. And this year, I think around about July going into August, right? Talking to Janice, doing the podcast, and really just understanding what I wanted to do, which is still make movies. I got like my win back with it, right? A part of that was I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, so really believing what God has invested in me as a creative. And then also wanting to use my gifts and not hide them or bury them because of fear. And I think that was the bigger part for me. I allowed fear and all the roots and sub ideologies that are associated with fear to dominate my thinking when it came to my work. So I started writing and things were starting to come together, but then also I started doing photography. And the photography piece was vital, right? Because it kept my imagination going. It helped me fall in love again with cameras. And it helped me to begin to really value community and really perfecting my gift. Another piece that contributed to me getting over this stuck place, right? This place of indecision and fear and, imposter syndrome was really valuing the opinions of those who are being creative. So that's where Tamara and Mike from Studio 40E and the Peculiar Collective, I was a part of these things and they were helping me to grow just as a creative and not to be afraid to take risks and really beginning to value myself as a creative again. So fast forward to August, I'm proud to say that I've really been writing consistently, like producing scripts. I've been writing scripts, not only writing scripts, but opening up myself to Janice and starting to build community, right? And trusting not only myself, but trusting that the right persons would be in my circle to help me to understand what the next part of my journey is going to look like. So why am I doing this? I want to encourage someone on their filmmaking journey, because this is filmmaker to filmmaker. I'm talking to filmmakers. This is who this podcast is for. I want to encourage you that you're not crazy. If you feel moments of intimidation or imposter syndrome, if you feel like you don't know what you're doing, perfect. That is perfect. That just means that you are in a space that all creatives have to go through. That part where you are trying to figure out how to navigate this journey. I almost quit. I almost gave this up altogether. I almost buried it because pick a reason. That's the thing. I got to a space in my life where it was easier to wallow in fear and indecision than to take the risk and to create something. Thank God for the right persons in my life who wouldn't let me quit. But I'm grateful to God that He put that dream in my heart that wouldn't die, right? And I want to encourage you, if you are a filmmaker, no matter what they're saying, right? A lot of people are saying, oh, AI is going to take our jobs. And I'm not saying not to pay attention to see how technology is evolving, but you can't use the what ifs and all the things that could go wrong as a reason not to pursue your career, right? You're supposed to do something. You're on this earth to create, to film. Storytelling is vital, right, for any society. And no matter what you believe, what your background comes from, every culture, every country, they have stories, right? My favorite part of the Bible are the parables. Jesus was like a cool storyteller. And he used basic stories to have eternal or spiritual impact, right? And I feel like we as filmmakers, no matter what you believe, have that same power. We have the ability to tell stories, to influence, to change, to impact, to ignite, to do whatever. And so I'm sharing my story with the hopes that I can ignite someone who might be listening to this to keep going. Don't stop. I have written 3 scripts now. I'm working on the 4th. And that's within a month. I didn't worry about it being perfect. I didn't worry about it, being what I think other people wanted it to be, right? I just focused in on what it is that I felt like I needed to share or say. Janice is funny because some of those stories, she's like, I didn't get that, can you refine or explain or whatever? And that's great. I'm not intimidated by that anymore, right? I love that. I love the experience of sharing something and working and collaborating to make that better, right? So talking about community, going back to that, I reconnected with my friend Nadia and I said, hey, I wrote this script. Will you help me with it? She's helping me with it, refining it, right? Asking the right questions. And that's exciting to me, right? Because I took the risk. I'm using community, right? Nadia, Janice, and then other persons are starting to get involved with the process. And I'm taking the pressure off of myself to be the rebel filmmaker, right? Which has its place. I think what Robert Rodriguez produced with his book is something that all of us should have. We should have that mindset that if I have to do this on my own, if I have to do this by myself, then by all means, I'm going to get it done. However, don't forsake community, right? And don't devalue collaboration. If you have resources, if you have people who want to help you, let them help you. I think that's the biggest lesson that I had to learn in the context of filmmaking. I put so much pressure on myself. I put all of this energy into being the guy with all the answers. And then I fed into this idea that I can't trust anyone with my ideas, or I have to be so guarded because people will steal my stuff. And, that mindset, protect your content always, but a big part of our community is learning how to work with one another and learning how to trust the right people. So those were things that I was about to throw away because of fear and this expectation that I have to do it on my own. I don't have to do it on my own, but I should be prepared to do it on my own if it comes to that. So the whole point of this podcast is really to inspire and to encourage filmmakers to start, right? Let's get some steps in here, some main ideas, some takeaways, right? So start, write the script, get the camera out, go practice your cinematography, all right? Go to Michael's or Hobby Lobby, get some items and do some production design stuff. Do whatever it is that's going to ignite your imagination. Just start it. Learn what you need to learn. YouTube University is a beautiful thing, right? It's free. Use your resources. Talk to people. Do what you can to make sure that as best as you can, you're producing the best version of what it is that you're imagining. Then don't allow fear to be that internal studio that puts things in development for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, remember when, perfect example, when Ryan Reynolds first appeared as Deadpool, and in that Wolverine movie that no one talks about, the first one, it's amazing how full circle of a moment he's having now because he fought so long. I respect Ryan Reynolds. I really do. Even before the Deadpool movies. Just Friends is one of my favorite films ever. Smoking Aces. Love that movie, right? I like Ryan Reynolds. I think his drive to make this franchise work, whether you like the movies or not, you have to respect his hustle. And it took years. I forgot the actual amount of years. Because the studio really question whether or not this was something that'll work. But he believed in it. He believed in it. And eventually the studio got behind it. But that might have been because he did some things that were unorthodox to make the studio see that it has value in it. Allegedly, he leaked the trailer that got fans excited about the movie. I don't know how true that is, but, you know, I think that what that represents, though, is that like studios do, they have to make sure that whatever they're putting out there, that it's going to be a return of investment, right? And I think for us, going back to what I said, fear becomes like this internal studio head. And it's like, no, that's not ready. That's not ready. It's not going to produce. It's not going to, they lean in more towards the negatives, right? Sometimes you have to kill that or leave that studio and go to a studio that either helps you to develop the idea so that it's ready, or, you surround yourself and you collaborate with other studios, meaning people. In this case, I'm using studio as a metaphor. That's going to help you get the content to a place where you're ready to produce it. I had to get myself out of a negative space that stopped me from moving forward. And it feels good. It feels so good to be working on content again and to be writing. And now to be at a space where we're about to start filming, right? All of that feels good. So find your community, right? Write the stuff, film it, whatever it is that you're supposed to do it. And don't let fear stop you, are my messages for this podcast. And maybe one day you'll come on the podcast and we can have a conversation, filmmaker to filmmaker. All right. So that being said, I am B. Anthony, aka Brian Anthony Smith. Thank you for listening to Filmmaker to Filmmaker. And check us out next week, where I, a filmmaker, will be talking to other filmmakers with Janice when she comes back, and we're gonna create some magic with this podcast. All right. So I hope what I said was encouraging, and I hope I made you feel better. And again, don't stop dreaming. Be great. All right. Take care. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the Filmmaker to Filmmaker podcast. For more information, you can visit our Instagram at Filmmaker to Filmmaker. See you next time.